our VP of Sales, and he would like to say some things about our company.
Thanks, Liz. I want to say hi and thanks to everybody for joining us on our final week of Informative Fridays for April. We appreciate those of you that have attended earlier sessions and welcome you that are joining for the first time. Today's session is going to be on rebuild maintenance. Before we do that, I want to take a minute, and if you don't know anything about Bales, give you a little background overview of who we are. We've been in the Infor ecosystem for over 26 years, and we're entirely Infor focused. We do nothing but Infor implementations, upgrades, and managed services. We support all aspects of the technology, including S3, Landmark, and Cloud Suite, finance, supply chain, and human capital management products. In fact, we've been recognized and given partnering awards in 8 out of the last 10 years, and our consultants bring 15 plus years of consulting experience in the space with the equivalent of professional experience. Some are former benefits managers, compensation managers, directors of supply chain, as well as controllers and CFOs. Recently, we were recognized by KLAS as top of class in the Infor implementation world. Really proud of that recognition. KLAS surveys customers around the country and puts together a list of the consulting firms that are considered to be top in the industry related to implementing the Infor products, and we were at the top of the list. We're really happy about that. Some additional exciting news for the Infor community. Earlier this year, Bales became part of Nordic Consulting. Nordic is an industry-leading healthcare consulting firm. We will continue to operate as a wholly owned subsidiary, and Jamie Bales will continue to be our president. Nordic will provide us with resources to fund our growth, expand our business, and support our customers more effectively. For healthcare customers in particular, it allows us to bring together the Nordic capabilities in the EHR space to provide a more holistic solution, including specific expertise in EHR and ERP integration. This combination will offer a best practices model to reduce implementation risks, leverage the data from both systems, and drive insights and outcomes. Again, thank you for attending, and I'm going to turn it back over to Liz.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. So today we will be talking about rebuild maintenance and the zero impact that Infor just came out with. I think it was in CU 34. So the agenda today, we will look at an overview, look at the administration or administrator configuration and setup, the administrator rebuild, and then the validation of the actor org unit setup. So an overview of what this process does, it allows maintenance of report and relationship, the supervisor chart, and the actor organization unit rebuild actions. This is purposeful because it enables you to suspend or resume dynamic rebuilds. It allows to schedule or run rebuild actions, and it provides information of scheduled rebuild actions, replication sets, queue information, and current and recommended setup. The administrator is responsible for scheduling and running the rebuild actions and suspending and resuming dynamic rebuilds. So what does this mean? So basically, under the administrator configuration setup, they have put in a new menu item, which is called rebuild maintenance. So how you would get to that is you would go to administrator, utilities, and then rebuild maintenance. And as you can see underneath, there is report and relationship, actor organization unit, and supervisor chart. We will not be talking about the text search on this call. So this is an actual, the new UI, which is basically a dashboard for the rebuild maintenance. So you will have a dashboard for reporting relationship, for the supervisor chart, and for your actor organization unit. So under this, you can see that they have the current setup, the recommended setup, the rebuild information, the replication information, queue information, and any additional information. And we'll go into each one of these in a minute. But as previously before, we did not have all of this at a glance. So this is really neat that now we can actually see what's going on with the rebuilds, you know, looking at it in one spot. So the recommended setup for the rebuild maintenance is to use what's now called the zero impact rebuild method. This method has no impact on supervisors or the supervisor chart, and the action runtime performance is improved over the legacy method. It also puts less stress on the system. If you currently are using the dynamic rebuilds, those do need to be disabled, and you need to be using the new rebuild method. Disable the dynamic rebuilds. When they are enabled, the records are updated dynamically and changes are reflected automatically. However, the dynamic rebuilds also unintentionally flood queues and put more stress on your system. I know I've been at clients where they have had, I don't know, probably 50 rebuilds trying to run at the same time, and the async gets bogged down when that happens. So this is hopefully going to streamline what your async is doing. So under the rebuild maintenance, the current setup, you would have what's called the rebuild method of legacy, and the dynamic rebuilds would be enabled. So that's what you currently would have. So in order to go in, you would need to go in and change that. So basically what the legacy method does now is the records are purged first and then they're created, which basically bogs your system down, doesn't allow people to get into their manager chart, or supervisors don't have access to those things that they need at that time. But under the zero impact method, there is no customer impact. Basically, it's almost like a change file. It validates current records that need to exist. It creates the new records that should now exist. It deletes current records that should not exist, which then by default becomes zero impact. So supervisors continue to have access, and there is continuous access to the manager chart even when records are being rebuilt. And both methods are run in multi-threaded mode. So Infor has put in what's called a recommended setup. And as you can see over in the little screenshot, this basically has where you can update to the recommended setup. So the rebuild method is zero impact. Why zero impact? Because there's no impact to the supervisors and no impact to users accessing the supervisor chart. And the action runtime is improved, which then, of course, puts less stress on the system. It's all about trying to get your system to work, more efficiently. The dynamic rebuilds, the recommendation is to disable them. And because, as I said previously, it can flood your queues in your async. And then real-time updates are less predictable because of variability of the number of triggers. And then dynamic rebuilds puts, of course, more stress on the system. So under the rebuild maintenance recommended setup, once you hit that update to recommended setup, you will receive two, depending on which one you're doing. If you're doing your reporting relationship or your supervisor chart, you will receive a confirmation message. So basically for reporting relationship, current setup will be updated to recommended setup. You would say yes to continue. And then once you continue, it updates it to the new recommended setup. So after taking the action, the current setup will be synced to the recommended setup, and the message is displayed in green, as you can see here. You will need to refresh in order for this current setup to actually show the zero impact and the dynamic rebuilds is now disabled. So under the rebuild information, there is what's called pending updates. So if you have pending updates, it indicates if there are any updates pending for rebuild. If dynamic rebuilds are disabled and there are no updates to manager work assignment structure, then no pending updates will be displayed, which is kind of a neat function to be able to see if you have any pending updates. If you do have pending updates, it will show, and it says pending updates exist for next rebuild. And if dynamic rebuilds are disabled and there are updates to manager work assignment structure, then pending updates exist for the next rebuild message is displayed as shown right here. Under the rebuild information, there are scheduled rebuilds. So as you can see on this screenshot, there shows a number of scheduled rebuilds of 3, but they want only 1 rebuild. This is because right now they probably have the data maintenance rebuilds set up, and they need to go in and actually cancel those. You only want 1 recommended scheduled rebuild to run as you're going. That way you don't have your async being bogged down by all these different rebuilds. So the number of scheduled rebuilds is if a rebuild action is scheduled multiple times, an alert message will be displayed, as I just mentioned. And the recommendation is to cancel the scheduled multiple actions and schedule 1 action with appropriate frequency. The next rebuild scheduled displays the information of when it will be ran the next time. Any questions, Kandice, at this time?
No, Liz, no questions.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna go on. So under the scheduled rebuilds, you can go in and you can cancel all of your scheduled actions. So it would go in and it would actually cancel those 3 actions that you have under scheduled rebuilds. Or a rebuild action is scheduled using data maintenance or data load actions. Those would need to go in and you would need to cancel those under there, and then you would need to go into rebuild maintenance menu in order to create the new rebuild. So once you've done the schedule rebuild or you've updated to the new 0 impact, this action is used to schedule, run, report and relationship and supervisor chart rebuilds. So you would have access to these actions once you have updated to the 0 impact and disabled the dynamic rebuilds. This allows you, if for some reason you want to go in and you want to rebuild dynamically, it will allow you to go back to that. So this will only be available action to schedule or run a new reporting relationship or supervisor chart rebuild. The data maintenance action is no longer available under that menu. If you've noticed, it's no longer there, although they have left the actual actions out there if you had them scheduled under the data maintenance or the data load, report and relationship and supervisor chart rebuild action. But they are no longer under there. They're just under the action configurations. So if the action is taken, a pop-up screen will be displayed, and you will either need to choose an organization or check process updates for all organizations before scheduling or running the action. So if you do check in the process, even when no updates are pending, will evaluate all reporting relationship records, even if there are no pending updates. So the recommendation is to schedule 1 action using the rebuild maintenance. The frequency should be decided based upon how often transfers or promotions occur, how often the supervisor structure changes, how often does direct, indirect supervisor changes on work assignment, how often is a supervisor field changes on the work assignment, and the expectation for work assignment updates to be reflected. So this is client specific, but they are expecting that 1 daily rebuild should be adequate. Of course, the frequency can always be increased if needed. You also need to make sure sufficient intervals are provided between schedule frequencies so that the actions are not getting queued up in async. So the replication little menu that they have on that new UI basically displays the information related to the report and relationship replication data set. So if you're using replication data sets, it will tell you that information. It gives you the count of replication sets replicated in the report and relationship and supervisor chart data. If a replication set is delivered by Infor and customer created another replication set, then an alert is shown as custom replication sets exist. And then the most recent replication information is also displayed, and it displays the information of the last successful replication, the replication set used to replicate the data, and record count, variation ID, and time the replication finished. Okay. The next little box that they have on the UI is the queue information, and this displays the queue related information for the rebuild action. The action configuration can be used to allocate threads to the action, and you actually have a little link that would link you back to the action configuration. If the action can run with multi-threading, you can go in and change the async queue of the action. This displays the information whether action configuration is enabled or not. And if action configuration is not enabled, recommendation is to enable that action configuration. The additional information menu item displays information useful when determining run frequency and threading, as well as general triage. Number of active work assignments. So this will actually show you the number of active work assignments you have in your organization, the number of work assignments with is supervisor code, and the total number of report and relationship records. Or it can display other useful information determining run frequency and threading, as well as general triage. And then under the supervisor chart, it can show the number of supervisor codes in the organization, the number of work assignments with assignment is supervisor code, and then the total count of supervisor chart record, which I think this is really informational and great to know when you're looking at different things in the organization. Any questions right now? I kind of moved through that pretty fast, I think.
No questions in the chat.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to discuss is the actor organization rebuild. So this is a little different than the reporting relationship and the supervisor chart UI. It has the exact same current setup, recommended setup, rebuild, and so forth, but it has different items under each one of these that it actually goes through, but some of it is the same. So under the current setup, you have the rebuild method, indicates the current method like we had discussed on the others. And then the legacy, the rebuild action will run in multi-threaded mode. Your rebuilds actor org unit and flattened actor org records. So normally under the data maintenance one where you would go in and set up your rebuild, it would go in and purge first and then create those records, which meant that the HR generalist would not have access to their actor org unit records. Under the zero impact, it validates the current records that need to exist, creates new records that should now exist, deletes the current records that should not exist, and by default, the zero impact is delivered. Now, the actor org unit generalists continue to have access even when their records are being rebuilt. So that's great that they actually have access to their records, because HR generalists are always doing something in there on employees. So the current setup is zero impact with enhanced optimization. It rebuilds action. The rebuild action will run in multi-threaded and zero impact mode. There is no customer impact. It acts only on actor org unit records, and it excludes validation and generation of flattened or actor org records. And actor org generalist access will be evaluated dynamically using actor org unit records. It validates, as I said, current records, creates new records, and deletes the current records that should not exist. The current setup is work assignment updates. So as you know, the other relationship to org and the supervisor chart, we just had rebuild method and dynamic rebuilds. Well, under here, you have rebuild method, dynamic rebuilds, work assignment update, and display warning. So under the work assignment updates, this indicates the automatic record creation process initiated by work assignment related transactions, such as hires, transfers, and so forth. If it's enabled, the flattened act-to-org records are updated dynamically. If it's disabled, the flattened act-to-org records are not updated dynamically. The rebuild action needs to be run to reflect the changes. Upon delivery of the current configuration for dynamic rebuilds, they will be preserved, like I was saying before, that when you upgrade or whatever, it will show you what you currently have set up. Your current setup is you can display the warning message, a confirmation while adding actor organization unit data. There's 3 options. There's never, when suspended, and when not suspended. So the recommended setup is it displays the recommendation for rebuild method and dynamic rebuilds. The rebuild method, recommended rebuild method is 0 impact. And basically, like before, it's no impact to actor org unit generalist, and action runtime performance is improved and less stress on the system. Do you see a theme here that basically we're trying to get less stress on the system and for runtime performance to be improved? So under the dynamic rebuilds, the recommendation is to disable the dynamic rebuild and schedule an action to keep the records in sync. And why do you want to disable the rebuilds? It's because you can intentionally flood the queue with rebuild actions. Real-time updates are less predictable because of variability of number of triggers, and the dynamic rebuilds puts more stress on the system. So the work assignment updates, the recommendation is to disable. Why would you need to disable this? Because with enhanced optimization, there is no need to rebuild flattened actor org records. The display warning recommendation is to set to never. And the reason why is with dynamic rebuilds disabled, there is no need of warning message. Is there any questions, Kandice?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, trying to get off mute. Let me make sure I summarize this.
Is it
So-
a long one?
Yeah. So here, I'll read the whole thing. It says, our organization has requirements for HR employees so they do not see each other. We implemented this by removing the actor org unit for the HR department for the affected HR staff. It seems rebuilding adds it back. Is this a bug or is there a way to work around that?
Can you read that one more time? Sorry.
Absolutely. Our organization has requirements for HR employees not to see each other. We implemented this by removing the actor org unit for the HR department for the affected HR staff. It seems rebuilding adds it back. Is this a bug? Is there a way to work around that?
Good question. I would need to take that as a takeaway and get back to you. I have not seen that, so we don't have that set up. So that's a good question. Can we take that as a takeaway and get back to them?
Yes, I'll get some information from them and we can circle back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so under the recommended setup, a message recommended setup not implemented is shown if the current setup is not in sync with the recommended setup. So as like the reporting relationship and supervisor chart, you would go in here and you would do update to recommended setup. When you do that, you just like the reporting relationship and supervisor chart, you do get a confirmation required message that says actor organization unit current setup will be updated to recommended setup continue, and you would hit continue or okay. So after taking the action, your current setup now shows that you have a 0 impact with enhanced optimization. Your dynamic rebuilds are disabled, your work assignment updates are disabled, and your display warning is never. And now this shows over here under recommended setup that your recommended setup is implemented. So under the rebuild information, the actor organization unit displays the information related to pending changes and scheduled actions. So pending changes and scheduled actions. So the pending updates, just like the report and relationship and supervisor chart, indicates if there are any updates pending for rebuild. If dynamic rebuilds are disabled and there are no updates to actor HR organization unit structure, then no will be displayed. Pending updates, if dynamic rebuilds are disabled and there are updates to actors in actor org unit table, then count of the pending updates will be displayed. So on this, there's one pending update right here. Clicking on the pending updates link will navigate you to the pending rebuilds list in the actor organization unit. Pending updates, if there are updates to the HR organization unit structure, then full rebuild required message is displayed as right here. In this case, a full actor organization unit rebuild is needed to keep actor or HR organization unit structure in sync. Excuse me. Under the scheduled rebuilds, the actor organization unit, right here, it displays the information of number of rebuild actions scheduled. A link is available to navigate to the scheduled actions, and it displays only the information of actions that are scheduled using delivered actions. Excuse me. The scheduled rebuilds, the number of scheduled rebuilds, if a rebuild action is scheduled multiple times, an alert message will be displayed. The recommendation is to cancel the scheduled multiple actions and schedule one action more frequently. The next rebuild schedule displays the information of runtime of next scheduled rebuild action. So you have this. So right now there's 2 scheduled, but it's recommended that only 1 be scheduled and when the next one will actually be run. So the scheduled rebuilds shows the flattened actor org, number of scheduled rebuilds, displays the information of number of rebuild actions scheduled. A link is available to navigate to the scheduled actions, and then displays only the information of actions that are scheduled using delivered actions. So as you can see, you only have 1, so basically recommended scheduled rebuilds is 0 because it is a flattened actor org. So the number of scheduled rebuilds, if a rebuild action is scheduled for flattened actor org, rebuild actor organization unit relationships, an alert message will be displayed. Excuse me. Recommendation is to cancel the scheduled action. Flattened actor org doesn't require a rebuild on its own because it is included in the regular actor organization unit rebuild. So the rebuild of the flattened actor org records is handled during the actor organization unit rebuild, and then the next rebuild schedule displays the information of runtime of next scheduled rebuild action. So the scheduled rebuilds, you can cancel all the scheduled actions. This action will cancel all of them. The action is only available if there are multiple actions scheduled for rebuild. Okay. Or a rebuild action is scheduled using data maintenance. So if you have this rebuild set up under the old data maintenance, they are requiring you to cancel that and go under the rebuild maintenance to actually go in and rebuild that schedule. So the scheduled rebuilds cancels all the scheduled actions. You will get a confirmation message that says scheduled actions will be canceled. Continue. We have a question, Kandice?
It's a continued question from our additional one, which we now have an email going around about.
Okay, all right. Okay, so under the scheduled rebuilds, just like under report and relationship and supervisor chart, you also get these actions that now allow you to do it dynamically. So if there are no scheduled actions, actions are available to schedule a new action. Schedule rebuild or rebuild actions can be used to schedule a new action. So under the schedule rebuild or run rebuild, this action is used to schedule or run or actor org unit rebuild. This will be only available action to schedule, run, actor organization unit rebuild. The data maintenance action, as I said before, is no longer available and won't be available to schedule or run new actions. There will be no impact to already scheduled actions. Flattened actor org data maintenance action, rebuild actor organization relationships, is also no longer available. No impact to already scheduled actions. As I said before, as if they're already scheduled, you would need to cancel them and then reschedule them under the rebuild maintenance. So under the schedule rebuild, run rebuild, clicking on the schedule will allow the action to be scheduled at desired time and frequency. So you would click on rebuild, it would open up, you would say, I want to schedule it, and then your schedule would come up. The recommendation is to schedule one action, as I previously said, using the rebuild maintenance. Frequency should be decided based on how often new organization unit access is added to generalist, how often organization unit access is removed from the generalist, and how often new generalists are added and provided access to the organization units, how often organization unit structure is updated, and expectation for actor organization unit updates to be reflected. Based on average customer expectation and amount of data, a daily rebuild should be adequate, but rebuild frequency can always be increased. Make sure that you do have intervals between each one of your frequencies, otherwise your async will get bogged down. So the replication menu displays the information related to actor org unit and the flattened actor org replication data sets. So your replication sets are your actor org unit, which shows you the count of replication sets replicated actor org unit data. If a replication set is delivered by Infor and customer created another replication set, then an alert is shown as customer replication sets exist, as shown in this red. And then the most recent replication information is also displayed, which shows the last successful replication, the replication set used to replicate the data, and the record count, variation ID, and time the replication finished. Under the queue information menu item, it displays the queue related information for the rebuild action. Action configuration can be used to allocate the threads to the action. So this is the same as report and relationship and supervisor chart. And you can change the async queue of the action. It displays the information whether the action configuration is enabled or not, but recommendation is to enable the action configuration. The additional information menu item displays information useful when determining run frequency and threading, as well as general triage. So under this, you would actually see your actor org unit parent records. your actor org unit count, and your organization unit count. So before I go on, is there any questions or anything, Kandice? Because now we're going to get into the validation of actor org unit records.
No, ma'am, no new questions.
Okay, great. But you got that one for me, right?
Yep, I have it.
Okay. So under the actor org unit, in order to validate that the actor org units are synced up with the HR generalist, basically they have added a new menu. And it's called validation tools. So you would go into administrator, utilities, validation tools, and then actor organization unit. So under this, you like I said, you navigate to that and it will bring up this form. Okay. This will show you all of your exceptions if you have anything that's not correct as far as your actor org unit records for your HR generalist. So the validate action validates actor and parent organization unit combination for exceptions. You could either do this by actor, or if you leave it blank, it will do it for all actors. So basically, like what I just said, the action can be run for a single actor. If actor is entered in the action form, only the actor entered on the screen will be validated for exceptions. If the actor field is left blank, all actors with parent organization unit records in actor organization unit are validated for exceptions. And you can also set up automatic email functionality. So this is the send email. So under the send email, you have an automatic, or you put in, if the send email is selected, the to and from fields, and then the to and from fields are required if send email is selected. After successfully completing the action, an email notification will be sent, including information of actor and organization unit exception. So under the validate or validation tab there, once completed successfully, the page will display the list of exceptions found, if any, and the left side of the list is the actor org units list, displays the information of actor, parent organization unit, the description of parent organization unit, and then the right side displays the exceptions found. As you can see, there was 2 exceptions found for that one actor. So the validate action can be scheduled. The action will run in HCM data maintenance and rebuild actions async queue. The action is multi-threaded. A default value of 2 threads is assigned to the action. And you can go in and change the number of threads or queue assigned and navigate to action configuration setup screen and search for the action rebuilds missing actor org action or the missing actor org unit class. Once you've done that, you can go in and synchronize the actions are available so that you synchronize the actor with the current organization unit setup. The synchronization can be done for a single actor, or a set action is available to synchronize all actors at once. So as you can see in here, you can go in, actor will be synchronized with current setup, employee 10, continue. So if you hit the submit, it will start synchronizing. So when the synchronization process is running for an actor, a blue alert will be displayed. Sorry about that. You'll see this little icon right here, the little blue alert. The synchronized actor blue alert displays synchronized in progress. Synchronization is a background async process. Excuse me. After the background process is complete, if no other exceptions are found for the actor and parent organization unit, the actor record will disappear from the list. If you do synchronize all, then the synchronize all action can be used to synchronize all actors with exceptions with the current organization unit setup. Action has ability to be scheduled, so you can schedule that. And the action will also display blue alerts on all the actors that are being synchronized. So that is the presentation on Rebuild Zero Impact method. Any questions or anything from anyone?
There are no questions in the chat right now.
Okay. We'll go ahead and Dave, do you want to take it over from here?
Sure. Thanks, Liz. That was a great session. Thanks to everyone for attending. And we appreciate you taking the time to join our sessions today. If you enjoyed today's webinar, and if you're considering, we really would hope that you would consider to attend our future webinar events that'll be scheduled for the month of July. But until then, look for communication on a Greatest Hits webinar series we're going to roll out during the months of May and June. Some of the better presentations from the past, the more popular presentations and sessions from the past, we're going to be reviewing on Wednesday afternoons in the months of May and June. So we hope to see you then. If you're interested in registering for anything, please visit our website or send an email to molly.velasco@balesllc.com. And as a closing thought, we wanted to make you aware of an offering that we have called Coffee with a Consultant. If you have any questions about anything you saw today, about anything related to your Infor system or the products, please reach out to us via the website, and we'll connect you with one of our consultants who will spend a half an hour with you at no charge. We repeat, a half an hour free consulting time, no charge, over coffee, tea, or whatever your preferred beverage is, and we'll answer any questions that you may have related to your Infor system. Again, thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Liz. You're amazing.
Thank you.